We just want to pop in and talk for a minute about the murder of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. We just wanted to talk about this a little bit since it is obviously a big story in crime right now, and also it is possibly related to a show we did recently, the one on Hitman, because there's been a lot of questions if this person who, as of this recording, which is on Sunday, December 8th, has not been identified, certainly hasn't been caught. But there's questions of, was this person a hired hitman? Was it a person who maybe studied how to be a hitman? I don't know, Dee, what's your initial take on this?
I mean, my initial take is it has to be a hitman. Because if it was someone who was personally impacted by the shit show that is the health insurance industry in America, I feel like there would have been more passion behind the killing. I feel like there would have been more emotion behind the killing. And I just don't know that we saw that. I think there was some red herrings with the inscription on the bullets and things like that. But
yeah, I was going to ask
you. It felt too organized for that.
You think the inscriptions on the bullets were a red herring? So there were 3 words, delay, deny, depose, written on the shell casings. And you think that was just to throw people off, make people think it was like a personal vendetta?
Yeah, and I mean, it's not going to narrow it down anyway if it's a personal vendetta. It's not like they've only screwed over one person.
When we talked about Hitman, the podcast and the book, there were some things that overlap with this story. There was this guy apparently came to New York on a bus. He stayed at a hostel. He used a fake ID, which the person we talked about, if he'd used a fake ID, maybe would have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
He paid in cash. He kept his mask on so his face was obscured, except for that one moment where he flirted with the hostel clerk.
It's the most young man situation I've ever heard of. I feel like he has to get caught, and he has to be ashamed of himself, being like, maybe something fun might happen here while I'm on the job. Why could you not just be like, this is an attractive woman, but I will leave this chance encounter aside while I'm on the job?
On that, I was chatting with one of our Patreon members today, Kyle. Kyle was of the opinion that maybe that was intentional. That because so much of this was so well coordinated, if you think about it.
Why would he intentionally show his face?
I don't know. Maybe we have to have Kyle on a future update episode on this.
But why?
Maybe that was a second person. Maybe he wasn't acting alone.
That makes no sense.
I didn't.
That makes absolutely no sense. There is no sense in that.
But
there is no benefit.
It seems like
it's like one of the massive benefits, I think, for crime that has come out of COVID is the ability to walk around with a mask on and half your face covered and no one to really bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
That's what I think is one of the things we have to talk about with this particular incident. It's baffling to me. I'm like, how did he rent that e-bike?
Yeah, I talked about that.
Or did he just steal it?
Maybe he used a fake credit card or like a prepaid debit card. Something he somehow paid for in cash, right? Like you walk into a gas station, you buy one of those prepaid Visa gift cards with cash.
Yeah.
Then suddenly you have something that works as a credit card. I don't know if that works for renting e-bike, but he clearly had that planned out, and he had he's in the middle of midtown Manhattan in the daylight at 6 whatever in the morning on a weekday, like a Wednesday or whatever it was, and he knows he's going to be on camera. He's on camera from the moment he gets into the bus station in New York.
Well, this goes to the mask situation.
It does.
The thing is, we don't know who he is. Well, I presume you don't know who he is.
I don't know who he is.
If you knew him, you would know who he was.
What do you mean?
His face wasn't as in
somebody out there sees that picture.
If this was your son or your brother-in-law or your cousin, you would know from the photo it was them.
Yeah.
So people know who it is. The police haven't got enough to help identify him. I mean, he's definitely in Canada by now.
Is that what you think?
Where? 100%.
All right.
Why wouldn't he go to Canada? He's at New York. It's the closest other country.
Do you think he can get across the border? How do you get across the border? Walk?
Did they have it? They didn't have his photo of the of the hostel that quickly.
You think he got out that quickly before that photo got out and made it across the border?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like go into a gas station, bleach your hair, you
Right.
know, put on a hat and like look like
Jason Bourne kind of move. Yeah.
a backpacker kind of thing. Like it's very like, I don't know. It feels very easy to me. I've never tried it personally. I've never been on the run, but yet, you know, growth mindset and all
Sure.
that. But like,
Sure.
but it feels very. But the whole thing feels so like a movie, and I think I feel like that's belittling to Brian Thompson's family, and I do want to come back to some of the discussions that have happened since this has all gone on,
Yeah.
because whoa, America, whoa. But it has felt a bit like a movie or something, the way it's gone on. Like, I feel like if I had seen this in a movie or a plot point in, which I probably have in like Cold Case or CSI or Law and Order, I'd be like, well, of course he's not going to get away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently he does. We're on what, day 5?
This happened on Wednesday. We're recording this on Sunday night. We'll hopefully get this out to everyone on Monday. But yeah, at the moment, they have not released a name. If they know his name, I can't believe they don't know his name. They must know his name. They must not be saying.
Well, like, I mean, they wouldn't say though if they knew. It's
And-
like with the Boston Marathon. I know we were discussing this
Yeah.
the other day, but like with the Boston Marathon, they wouldn't have released the names of the people. They knew who they were before they caught them.
Yeah, there's certain things.
They're not going to release their names because there's certain things that are going to happen if you do that.
Yeah.
Like they have to know more than they're letting on.
Yeah.
They have to.
A couple other things I want to ask you about, and then we can wrap this up. But one thing was when they found his backpack in Central Park, there was the Monopoly money in it. What do you think
Okay.
that was about?
I hadn't heard that until right now. And I don't know. Was it like embedded in like actual cash?
All I know from reading about this in a couple different places is they found the backpack. Inside, they found Monopoly money. There was a Tommy Hilfiger jacket, and there was a Starbucks water bottle, which they had a partial fingerprint from, but apparently it didn't result in any matches, or it wasn't a good enough fingerprint. And the other thing they found is a burner phone.
Who had he called?
I don't know if they know. They're not saying.
Maybe the Monopoly money was a little bit of a like an FU, like as in, you know, they've a monopoly, they're in charge of the money. Like money's kind of fake to them when you think about like the amount of money that the insurance companies are making. That, I mean, I think Brian Thompson, from what I read, was on something like 10 million a year. Maybe it was a case of like, it's monopoly money to you, it's not to us kind of thing.
Do you
I don't know.
think, so it seems like the New York Police Department and the FBI are now devoting a significant amount of resources to finding this guy. A lot of people get murdered in New York. Is there an argument to be made that this is, I mean, I know that there's a whole argument about, or there's a whole part of the story about the fact that people's reaction to this generally is, oh yeah, healthcare companies suck and everyone has a miserable experience with them, and it's hard for people to find sympathy for this guy. But a man did get murdered, and I guess my question is it right for this much attention, this much money to be spent, this much time and resources when there's all these, I mean, we talk about some of these cold cases, some of these unsolved murder cases, but I feel fairly confident that this guy's going to get caught. It's a matter of time. There's going to be enough time put into this, enough people put into this. What do you think of that?
I mean, you cannot have such a brazen attack happen in New York on someone of like, prominence is coming to mind as a word, but if for anyone who cannot see me, I'm doing my
Air
little
quotes. There are air quotes.
air quotes, because like, but like, you cannot have that. Like the city cannot have that, because what happens then when there's the next conference on? Are they going to want to have it in New York, or are they going to want to have it somewhere else? So I understand like the simplistic way of looking at it being like, we cannot spend this resource. You wouldn't spend this on like if, just Joe Blogs down the street gets shot. And I get that. But you have, like, I feel like it's not as simplistic as that. If life were only that simple, they have to look at the fact that New York is a huge tourism spot. Like, what would happen if there was like all the conferences that do go there? Will they still go there, or will they go somewhere where they feel more safe?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good point.
And, and by doing that, are they then generating money for the city itself?
All right. My last question for you.
Okay.
One of the cases I thought of that is far removed from this, but is tangentially related to this topic, is the McGlinchey murders from the 1890s, where we spent a lot of time talking about, okay, this man murdered this whole family and then took off. This was in Campbell, California, and took off. Again, this was 130 years ago or so, never to be seen again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is 2024 Manhattan. Which direction would you go if you're trying
Canada.
to? Okay. What's your
Why would you go anywhere else?
What's your plan? Where are you going to go in Canada? You've never been to Canada.
I've been to the Canadian side of the Niagara Falls.
Is that where you would go? The Canadian side of Niagara Falls.
Well, that's where I know. But like, it's so close. Like, why wouldn't you go there?
And it's relatively close to New York. It's still, I mean, that's I think it's like a 5-hour drive if you go straight north from New York City.
But where else is closer? New York to Mexico is...
So you would definitely leave the country.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think there's a place in this country where you could hide?
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe, but sure, I don't know half the states, Jeff.
There's a lot of states out there.
There's a lot of states.
All right. Okay.
No. Here, come here. I will say, and we don't have to harp on about this. We can close this out, but I find it pretty disgusting, the rhetoric going on about this murder. I get that the health system is a shit show here. I really do. I don't have the experience of having gone through it with like so many stories which I've heard where like people have died because they weren't able to access certain parts of their insurance, or they haven't been able to get certain surgeries. I don't get it because I haven't lived it, but I appreciate all of the stories that are coming out, and I appreciate that must be horrendous for all these people. I appreciate that he was on 10 million a year at the head of a health insurance industry, but it's not him.
Yeah.
He isn't the creator of the health insurance industry.
Sure.
If it's anyone to blame, it's the politicians who are allowing this to keep going and going and going, because it's up to them to change things. They create free healthcare. That's what affects over the health insurance industries. I don't appreciate, which I've read articles about people who are, against some of the more conservative politicians around, and who yet are saying like, he's a hero, whoever he was. Like, let's buy him a beer, this guy. This guy has kids.
Yeah.
He's kids. He was a person. Like, what? How are you speaking like this?
Yeah.
We should, neither side. I don't know why this country is all about sides, but the sides shouldn't be nobody should be talking about that, like, about anyone. It kind of reminds me, and other people have opinions on this as well, obviously. You remember, was it last year when the submarine went down and all those like
Yep.
really
Going to
rich
see
people,
the Titanic.
Yeah, died.
Mm-hmm.
I heard people like saying, it was actually probably 2 years ago now, basically like, good enough for you spending money on that. No, like,
they're still people.
They died in a really horrific way.
Yeah.
They're people. They have families up here that are devastated. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but seriously, guys, it's people. Like, let's not kill each other.
And I mean, you could say the same thing when the two people try to take a shot at Donald Trump. Like, think what you will about him. Is that really where we want this country to be, where people are just picking people off like that on the street, just going about their business? And I mean, in that first time where he got shot at, another, like an innocent person who just happened to be in the stands, died. And I mean, that could have happened in New York. There were people all around there, and someone who could have just been...
It was like a person on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's maybe that's the point to end on, is it's not the kind of society that we want this to be. It's not. No. We certainly don't want to glorify it. So It's a fascinating
No.
story, though.
And as I say that, like, it is a fascinating story. It's just so like shocking. Like, it's really shocking. It's not something you kind of hear of every day, and yet there was one just last year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, if
We'll
you're
see. We'll keep everyone. We might come back on when he gets caught. Can I say when he has to get
I
caught?
think it's a when, not an if. If you have thoughts, leave them in the comments on this episode or let us know on social media. I'd love to know what you're thinking about this as this breaking news story continues to develop.
And Kyle, if you're listening, please reach out and explain to us the madness behind your thought that his exposing his face was part of the plan. Would love to hear more from it.
All right.
And thanks as always to our listeners and our Patreon members for reaching out to bring these conversations to us.
Thanks for listening to this special episode of So Much Crime.
So little time.